I realized that you're the only man on the show today. We had Jacina Oliphant, we had Judy Padiachi, and Mia Kruger.
Wow.
So you should be grateful that you're on the show today.
Honorary
guest. Yes, it is Women's Day. It's always Women's Day. Okay, let's focus on Portugal and Greece, both getting downgrades today, and Greece pretty much junk.
I can't believe we're
S&P.
still talking about these Europeans. They're starting to really tire me out.
Are they?
So, I mean, it's kind of like all of this bad news backs up and it never pauses and the market never goes down.
Yeah.
So I'm determined to ignore it.
What about Jean-Claude Trichet? Hawkish comments coming through from him. Does that create any sort of
You know,
concern
I
in
mean,
your mind?
a couple of months ago, people were saying the euro was definitely going to fail.
Yeah.
One of the peripheral states was definitely going to get kicked out, and there would be some kind of systematic kind of weakening. We haven't seen that at all. We haven't seen that at all. And, economic numbers to me don't look that negative. I mean, Trichet is talking about putting rates up, not because he thinks that's going to be a good idea, other than that he wants to normalize economic markets. I don't know, maybe I'm just hardwired to see all of these positive things. I'm like, this looks like good news to me.
Does it? Okay. Well, it's amazing what the repercussions will be. We know that gold could get affected and all of that, but it's supposed to bring down inflation. What is interesting, though, is the case Schiller data that was out today. Did you take a look at that, Paul?
Yeah, so the US housing market remaining very weak. Look, I am mindful that for many Americans that are property owners, because of course owning properties in the US has been part of the American dream, the collapse of housing prices is a key part of why they feel so grumpy and negative.
Exactly. And in fact, 11 of the 20 cities fell to the lowest level since home prices peaked in 2006 and 2007.
And I'm sure big cities like Detroit, don't feel like they used to, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But, the stock market is higher, so that's the positive wealth effect.
Yeah.
And we know that in the US there are perverse incentives for housing. There's all that cheap finance available, plus there's an income tax credit for mortgage payments, even on second and third properties. So it's not surprising that they had this glut of properties. But my own take on it is, the US is a big economy. It's got big immigration, particularly from Hispanics. So that housing stock will get absorbed in time.
You mentioned that equity markets are doing well. Aren't equity markets doing well because of quantitative easing?
No. Haven't you learned anything from all of my lecturing? Obviously not.
So what is the equity market?
The equity market is higher because earnings are higher, because companies are making more and more of their money globally, and because there are all these new producers and consumers out there. So everything from
the excess liquidity has
Coca-Cola to Nike to
market.
General Electric are making all this money. So the equity markets are higher, reflecting all these new earnings that are coming through.
After liquidity crunch in
Plus, of course, they used the crisis to fire all the useless workers and to lower their costs, which pushes up their profits. So it's entirely to be expected that markets are at all-time highs.
Have you seen anything on Central Rand Gold today? It was quite interesting. I was looking at some of the SENS announcements. We know that it halted underground operations, and it's only going to reassess the situation in October this year. And then it was followed by a very confusing SENS announcement.
Look, this is a company that, quite frankly, has been a shell ever since it launched. And the fact that it ever had a sizable market cap is really just testament to how idiotic some of the gold bulls are out there, because it was a bunch of clapped out old workings that supposedly had huge potential, but which nobody had put a torch down.
New technology, a new mine, lots of new management.
Whatever. But it was just really a big pump and dump scheme. So it was listed. People got very excited about it. They had a fight with their BEE partner. There's nothing there. I mean, there really is nothing there, because it's not so cheap just to wander into workings that haven't been looked at for hundreds of years.
Avusa, Metarex, huge group as well. What's going on? M&A activity.
Okay, well, the Avusa thing looks to me, again, like a total nonsense. So they were yapping on about how it was looking so exciting yesterday, but it was up like 20% on 1,000 shares traded. Liquidity in that thing is terrible. Avusa's big shareholders are Mvela Panda, who hate the Avusa management team because they did that crazy deal to buy Hurt and Carter. And then Coronation is in there. I don't know what they're doing in there. So these guys, if I can understand between the lines, are a bunch of leveraged buyout specialists that have gone to the management team and said, hey, let's take this thing off the market. But I really don't think this is going to amount to a sack of beans, and the management team at Avusa don't appear to want to do the transaction anyway. So I think it's just one of those things that will drift through and drift out again.
It's amazing how many cautionary announcements we've had so far this week.
Well, in a way, it's kind of fun and exciting. Because everybody gets, oh, look how much this one is up, and I heard about this before it went live. For me, the much more interesting one, as we were talking yesterday, is Metarex.
Yeah.
Because Metarex, there are rumors going around of parties coming in to buy them.
Do you think it's a, sort of a Chinese play that could be coming through? That's kind of the
Look,
thing
the
that I've
rumors
been
I'm hearing from everywhere is that it's Vale, the Brazilian company. And when I say everywhere, it's the
Yeah.
usual old Joburg leaky wire. You know, this is supposedly...
I've got my own leaky wires.
I mean,
It might
really.
tell me something about a Chinese connection.
Oh, really? Well, then
Yes.
maybe the leaks are going in both
Of
directions.
course, we are CNBC.
But I'm
so we're
hearing
delving into it
also
further.
prices at the sort of 720 range. But you know what happens with these things is that people take positions when the cautionaries come out. Then they start putting out rumors about what the buy price is to get other people to buy the shares so they can dump them on the way up. All sorts of unspeakable things being done in the interests of making money.
Of course, I'm going to give you a moment now to be funny. Apparently, you've got a joke for us or something. Because you're never normally funny. So
That's
yeah.
great. No, well, I mean, the jokes I was liking today were about the 2012 Republican candidates. Now, you know, Obama has got a second potential term.
Yeah.
Very hard to beat a...
But I thought the world was coming to an end in 2012. So this is
the
before the world comes to an end.
Okay, you know, good point, good point. So in the event that the Mayans are wrong and the world doesn't come to an
Yes.
end, they're going to have an election there. And the Republican candidates that stand out so far are Sarah Palin and Donald Trump. Those sound like wonderful candidates, don't you think? But, you know,
very different people.
seeing as you're concerned about the sovereign risk of the United States of America, it is probably quite a good thing that Donald Trump is a bankruptcy expert, seeing as he's been in bankrupt deals so often. You know, he'd be probably quite perfect for the job. And then the other thing about Sarah Palin was that she was touring India and Israel and a couple of other countries. And one of the issues in India is the border disputes in Kashmir and so on.
Yes.
Apparently a journalist asked Sarah Palin what she thought about the disputes in Kashmir, and she said, no, Kashmir makes me itchy, I prefer cotton.